All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Surviving Hollywood Podcast. My name's Austin.
My name is Aaron.
I'm Johnny Ray Diaz.
And we just had a great episode. Tips and tricks how to be a commercial director. Krista Liney, who's directed promos for The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, a Geico commercial that Aaron and I were in. She's done a bunch. What did you guys think?
She's worked with Michelle Obama, Dr. Jill Biden, Justin Bieber. Really? She's a very talented director. I really enjoyed having her on because last time we saw her was on set for Geico/Halloween commercial we did. Still airing now, I believe, even though it's Halloween themed. And we talked to her about that. And I don't know, I just like her as a director. Glad we got to connect.
Yeah, she was really cool. Like one thing she kind of talked about, which I thought was really interesting, was kind of her mentioning how she kind of went sort of a different route for directing. She's been doing a lot more producing for other networks like the History Channel, things like that, and kind of fell into directing sort of in a way, even though she probably kind of always wanted to do it. But she also mentioned how she kind of like tied up with a production company that's producing a lot of stuff, as opposed to going other routes where sometimes you get representation. So for anybody out there that's looking to direct, and it kind of proves to you that there's so many different avenues of like working in this industry. There's not one way to do it. And I think she's kind of like proof of that. So
enjoy the up.
Look what's saying about me. It's the Hollywood Podcast. Movies, TV, and some stories from their own past. Learn about the grind like you're sitting in your own class. Underneath the tree, it's the Hollywood Podcast. Yeah, it's the Hollywood Podcast. Yeah, it's the Hollywood Podcast.
Are you guys still going full force, or because the coronavirus lockdowns? What do you think about that?
Well, I'm fortunate enough right now doing exactly what you guys are doing, where I'm actually producing some podcasts on the side with a company called Audio Up. So as you know, that's fairly COVID proof in that we can record anywhere from the comfort of our own homes and remain fairly safe. But productions, yes, I'm hearing that they kind of ramped back up for a while, and now they're kind of winding back down a little bit. So I have a feeling December might be a little slow. Going into the holidays as we kind of navigate this next wave of whatever is coming our way. Yeah.
Well, good thing we already got our commercial in.
We did.
You were a great director, by the way. That was awesome set you were running.
Thank you so much. That I can't take credit for that. That's the folks at Canyon Road Films who I'm with. Those guys are amazing, and they really I love them so much because they really care about the shoot experience, and they really care about taking care of people. And that's part of the reason why I like them so much and I'm with them, is because they really, they bring a sort of humanity to the whole filmmaking process that really resonates with me. And I appreciate, like, it's the little things, making sure that the meals arrive on time, people are fed, they're happy, spirits are good. I have yet usually to receive talent on set who are in a bad mood, because usually they try to comfort you. And especially like how long were you in makeup?
I was in prosthetics and makeup for like 6 hours, and then we broke for lunch. Then I was in it for like another hour and a half, and then we started filming my stuff.
And then they were like, "We're not going to use you, Aaron. Thanks for coming. Appreciate that."
I'm sure that happens all the time. Yeah, that was crazy. That was the first bigger shoot that I had done since COVID and being on lockdown. So it was the first time trying to explain what I wanted. And we had, of course, COVID compliant officers, but it was the first time wearing a mask and a shield and a thing. And I realized that I look like a crazy person gesticulating all over the place, trying to explain what I want, but you don't realize how much you use your face in that, like where you're trying to explain how you want a reaction to be, or just a feeling that you want. And that was really complicated. And the crew, I think, was also, normally, people who have a shorthand working together can give that like nod and they kind of know how to, it's that unspoken language sometimes that happens on a set when you're familiar with people and your crew. And I noticed that even those guys are like, "What? Huh? What are you saying? Oh, I thought you meant make it purple. And we're like, no, that's not what we want.
Right.
So
is that the exclusive production company for Geico? Because a lot of those commercials are so all essentially like kind of like they found like a sort of a niche with that sort of style. Do they produce most of their spots?
No, they don't. I think,
Okay.
and actually this project came through Hulu and their creative team.
Okay.
So it was to promote their Huluween event, and I was very, very excited to have the opportunity to do it because I thought it was a great idea. I'm a sucker. I'm like dad jokes all the way and puns. And anything with a pun in it, I'm like, yeah, you had me at Huluween. I'm in. Like, yes, let's do this. And I've said this to you guys before, Austin and Aaron, but like you two were the first audition that I saw, like over that whole Zoom. And that was also really interesting too, the whole casting process over Zoom I had never done before. So that was really kind of interesting and fascinating. And I can't imagine what that's like for you guys.
Yeah, it was us chilling in our room, waiting to be let in. And be like, oh, neat. But
and you're on. Yeah, go.
Yeah, exactly.
And go, guys. Yeah.
But it was great. Just 4 or 5 people saying, "All right, hey, you guys want to take it again?" And we're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
So we were the first person you saw, and then we obviously we got cast, but you had to sit through all those other people. Did they even stand a chance?
Sadly, I will say this. We had to. Everyone has an understudy during COVID, as I like to say. Like even myself, they had someone to tap in case I tested positive or anything. So there are people now kind of waiting in the wings to take over. So I had to have a backup plan just in case one of you were to test positive. And so there were people who came like marginally close, but not quite.
Of course.
You were the first, and it was so funny. As soon as kind of they left the chat before letting the next contestants in, the next contenders, I was like, yeah, I'm sold. I'm good. I don't need to see anyone else. So yeah, it worked out really well.
That's awesome.
As a director, how is obviously this thing is new for everybody, right? Have you found this sort of Zoom casting session to be more beneficial? Like, are you seeing more people? Do you like it? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
It's an interesting prospect. You pick up so much more just being in the room and live with someone. You kind of can get the whole like body language, you get the whole physicality of acting. But I didn't mind kind of staying at home, from the waist up. I was dressed. I had like sweatpants on underneath. I had lunch ordered and delivered. I was pretty comfortable. Also, it's very interesting watching people navigate the technology too, because there was another spot we did. So we shot 2 spots in one night. And so the other casting, there were just some people who just could not figure out how to deal with Zoom and the directions that they were given. It was very interesting. Also, very interesting is, of course, me being me. I'm surveying the whole scene. So I'm watching the acting, but I'm also like, what's in the background over there? What's their framing like? What? Yeah. And there was one time someone was auditioning and the casting director kind of interjected and they're like, can you hide the bong on your dresser? I was like, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, you'd be amazed how people aren't really quite entirely aware of their surroundings sometimes. So that was fun.
We have a lot of actors and casting directors, a few that watch. What's your biggest pet peeve from the actors in the audition room? And also, what do you hate about casting directors in the audition room?
I don't know if are you sneaking back there?
He's invited. He's invited.
Are you in a hot set right now?
Kind of, yes. This is John Ben Simon. He's also an incredible, no, it's okay. He's also a very incredible director, a DP, and he's here shooting, setting up a room for tomorrow.
Yeah, so you got the guitars and the drums in the back.
Oh, yeah.
Nice, full setup.
The kind of niche that we're finding here with our podcast, we're doing a lot of scripted musical podcasts. So we've got a couple out now. One is called Make It Up As We Go, and that's Dennis Quaid, Billy Bob Thornton, Miranda Lambert. So it's nice. It's scripted musical podcast. It's with characters and acting, and it's kind of a very interesting way to tell a story audibly. So it's very new territory for me.
What's the podcast called?
It's called Make It Up As We Go.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. We also had one called Halloween in Hell, and that was with Machine Gun Kelly, 24K Golden, and Ian Dior. And of course, I'm older, so I had to Google everyone. But but that was fun too. So
how'd you get into that? How'd you get those big names?
Yeah.
I don't even know that I'm entirely responsible, but or know how exactly it all comes together. But Audio Up was founded by Jared Gutstadt, who is a very dear friend of mine. We came up through the ranks together and kind of started cutting our teeth in filmmaking in New York City together. And he started this company, and he just has he did a lot of jingles for TV. So he actually had a company called Jingle Punks. So he's kind of entrenched in the music world, and he's just such an interesting character, because when he basically was like, great, I have this idea, I'm going to get this person, he goes and he gets them. It's like magic. I don't know. But he's just got those contacts and connections, and it's really interesting.
Is the key to booking work as a commercial director or any director, do you have to join a production team or whatever? Is that how you get work?
I feel like it's a new world order now. In the past, traditionally, a lot of directors go for, they sign with commercial companies, and those production companies have reps, and they go out and they kind of pound the pavement and get you work. Today, what I'm seeing more and more and more is that directors really don't sign exclusively with anyone. They're kind of like free agents, and they're have their own network of people, and they'll kind of procure their own work, or have various companies procuring work on their behalf. So I took that route when I first kind of started directing, and I just kind of found a home really with Canyon Road. And I kind of like how they treat everyone. So to your previous question about like casting directors,
Nice.
I think the thing for me is it's interesting. I get very emotionally connected. Like I'm definitely one of those folks who are very sensitive and a little bit of an empath when it comes to people coming in and auditioning, because I'm rooting for you. I want everyone to get the job, but not everyone can get the job. And there are people who come in and they're just giving it everything they have, and they're maybe not right. And I'm always the one going like, just don't give up. But I found like some casting directors can be so rude. Like I just say and I'm in the room kind of cringing, going like, no, don't just dismiss or like cut them short or anything. Like I don't know. I like to kind of see if there's a little bit more there, if there's something I'm missing, and at least do another take, just to kind of, because people get nervous, and rightfully so. It's got to be daunting. I would ask that question of you guys, what it's like to kind of walk into not only the Zoom casting, which is infinitely awkward, but then on top of like in person, what that's like to kind of sit in a room full of people and then walk into another room full of people and strangers and just be expected to kind of turn it on like that. I have such respect for that, actually, and I feel deeply for it. So I don't know. I just yeah. I don't know where we're really going with that, but
I always actually wonder how much are you involved in the decision of who is chosen? Because I know the client is obviously has their choices possibly, or even the casting director's like, well, I like this person, but ultimately does it come down to your decision, or is it the client?
It depends on the project.
Okay.
And no two jobs are the same. So I kind of approach every project like that. There's no cookie cutter. I know what to expect with certain clients. But sometimes it's just they want my strongest recommends, and I give them, and I kind of say definitively what I want. And sometimes, creative directors have their own opinions, and they'll, we'll usually, if we have a disagreement, we'll kind of talk through what and why, and go from there. But technically, usually the client wins out, sadly.
Okay.
In this case, I would say with the spot that I did with you guys, it was the first time I was like, that's who I want. And no one disputed anything. I just got everything I wanted. And it was the first time I was like, this is weird and awesome. I love this.
That's awesome.
At
That's
the
what
same time, you were like, I should have asked for more money too. What was I thinking? Come on.
Can I have a bigger budget?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the other spot too, by the way, the babysitter one. Did you shoot that one on the same evening? Is
Same
that
night.
okay?
Yeah.
That was a really good spot too.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
It almost sounded like Seinfeld type music.
It was. Yeah.
Okay. I was like, not quite it, because I know you can't use it, but it was good. I liked it.
Yes. That was on purpose. And yeah, if you actually listen to them side by side, they're totally different. But I think people just remember the kind of, the baseline. They're like, we get it. Yeah.
For legal reasons, Johnny, they're totally different legally.
Totally different. Yes.
Saying anything.
Exactly.
Have you ever been on set where you're not getting what you want from an actor? Not our set, obviously. How do you handle that?
Very delicately. No. Sometimes it's just a matter of giving people a break, and usually what I do is I will typically take an actor to the side, away from everyone, or into a separate room entirely, and just tell people to take 5 or 10 if we've got that kind of. It depends on who's barreling down. There's also clients who will hover and they're just like and so usually I try to like remain calm and like kind of take someone to the side and just kind of, hey, let's work through this together, and kind of do it like privately, and give them space to kind of collect their thoughts, and sometimes show them physically what I want them to do, and try to act it out as best as possible for them, and kind of without being insulting, if that makes any sense. I respect the craft of acting, and I certainly respect people who are kind of putting themselves out there for it. So I want to try to kind of bring out the best in people. But it's certainly not by, and trust me, I've been on the sets where I've seen people screaming and yelling and jumping up and down, and that does nobody any good. So yeah, so usually it's just try to do a little private coaching if I can.
It feels like you're kind of, I mean, I could be wrong, but it feels like you're somewhat of an actor's director a bit.
I like it. I mean, I love the whole craft of making commercials or film or directing or anything. I just love the whole process, and part of that is really like what I see my role as a director is bringing out the best in. Yes, there's kind of like a bigger vision, but it's kind of like bringing out the best of everyone's talent, the best in a shot from a cinematographer. It's the best acting that I could pull out of someone to make the spot what it needs to be, or the project what it needs to be. So it's done all with complete kind of like respect for the craft, and it's funny. I did a documentary a long time ago. I worked at Sundance Channel, and I worked with there's this legendary New York-based acting coach named Win Hanman. And he literally coached everyone. Like if you look him up, he studied under Meisner, and so he was his protege. And so he taught everyone from, I can't even tell you, like Michael Douglas and James Caan and like Dustin Hoffman, like everyone like went through his school. And so I would sit in on his class when he was still teaching. And it was just amazing to kind of see how he talked to actors, and it kind of translated. It stuck to me because I could see the process, or what he was kind of teaching everyone about truth and reality, and sharing and emoting, and kind of finding that within themselves. And so it just kind of taught me like a whole different kind of perspective on the art of acting. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember one time I was on set, I wasn't quite getting what you wanted, and you took me aside and you just kind of grabbed me and said, "Are you trying to embarrass me? Are you trying to embarrass me?" And it worked. No, I'm just kidding.
You guys were very easy. No, it was a long day for all of us. And again, I think that particular shoot, it was very interesting because it was just, I completely underestimated the inability to communicate with masks on. Like that was just kind of crazy. And
those teeth.
Yes.
That's a you problem, buddy.
Like, how about make a sound a little bit different? But I had this thing in my mouth, so all my sounds were like, rah, 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 just R's.
How did you two decide who would be the werewolf and who wouldn't? Who would be the non-werewolf?
Flipped a coin.
We flipped a coin.
Did you get to decide, or I thought they just picked or something?
Well, in the audition,
People always ask us to decide.
Yeah, they said, hey, in the audition room, they said, so who's who? And then immediately, so there wasn't any dead time. I was like, oh, I'm the werewolf, obviously. But then once we booked it, they're like, okay, tell us who's going to be the werewolf. Then we flipped a coin.
So it was basically like, I want to be on camera. Sorry, Aaron, not going to happen.
I remember in my 5th hour in prosthetics and makeup, chatting with the makeup lady. She made an offhand remark saying, hey, I bet you wish that you weren't the one in the mask or something. And I accidentally said, yeah, I wish. And you can just tell that kind of deflated her a little bit. I was like, oh man, I said the wrong thing. No, I love the mask. It was just, the 5th hour. But
again, incredible respect for that, because the patience that it takes to sit there. And I saw you at various steps along the way. I feel like I would go and I'd walk out of the room and I'd go direct the babysitter spot and I'd come back and I'm like, and then you would just have that next little phase. So I got to see it in increments, and it got crazier and creepier along the way. But yeah, you were there for a really, really long time. So what did you do to pass the time?
Hey, just part of the job. I'm, no better than anybody else on set. It was great. I was just happy to be there. Just to pass the time, I don't know.
Crafty?
I can't even.
Couldn't even have that, huh? You couldn't even have that. Huh?
No.
I just sat there and made light chit chat, and then eventually just listened to them make light chit chat, and then.
And she was like, "Stop moving, please. You're ruining the prosthetics."
I don't know. Before we go any further, I'd love to find out a little bit more about your influences, Krista. Is there like movies or TV shows when you were first getting into it that you were like, "Man, this inspires me. I want to make something like that," or?
That's always such an interesting question. I don't know that it was any one thing specifically. I knew kind of growing up, I didn't want a traditional job, whatever that meant. Like nothing appealed to me. And then when I was in high school, I picked up a video camera for the first time, and I didn't even know that much about film, really, like the way a lot of kind of like real like film nerds dive in deep. Like I didn't really know that much about the craft, but I just knew that I loved it and I was intrigued by it. And so I took a course in high school, and of course I was playing around with like stop motion animation, and I would bring home like a video camera and set it up and at home and like play around with stuff. And then when I moved to New York, and so literally I kind of got my education kind of working on sets, like starting off as a PA for like commercials and music videos back in the day. And it was really like taking those influences and then educating myself like separately, if that makes any sense. But that's when I really started to dig deep into like really watching every film I possibly could. Cause I don't know, growing up, like my family wasn't really big into movies at all. So we didn't really watch them, or I didn't really go to the theater much. So it was really when I moved to New York was when I really started to embrace it and dig deep and start really like digging in. But my influences are so varied. I'm just inspired by just amazing craftsmanship. Like I like different films for different reasons. So it's always the most difficult question in the world to answer is like, what's your favorite movie? I can't. There is not one that I can really point out as being the ultimate favorite movie, because I like so many things for so many different reasons. Yeah.
Is there something you've seen recently or watching right now that like hits all cylinders, like technical aspects, acting, cinematography, everything?
Goodness, I just watched The Queen's Gambit.
I'm watching that now. I'm watching that now. Yeah.
Third episode. That's a really well made thing.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Really good show.
Beautiful. Love period pieces for whatever reason. I just love being transported back in time. Just started watching The Crown too, kind of like simultaneously.
Love that show.
That's super, super interesting right now. I'm I just crossed over into season 2. I've got a backlog of stuff that I need to watch. But yeah, Yeah, Queen's
so
Gambit
much.
I thought was amazing. Yeah.
Who knew that chess would be so interesting? I don't know.
Right?
Tagline.
That's true. I was like, I have no idea what's happening, but I'm so intrigued. Here's something that I may or may not live to regret admitting to, but I have never watched Game of Thrones.
Neither have I.
All right.
You're not. Hey, I high five.
Podcast over.
Well, yeah, you only missed out 8 years.
I guess it's just me and you, Krista. I guess it's me and you. All right, see you later, guys. No, is there a reason why? Just
no. It just it's there, and someday I'm going to tackle it, and and I know I'm going to, and I'm going to get there, and then I'm sure once I'm in, I'm probably just going to like become some crazy like cracked out. Like just live in a sleeping bag and like not shower for like a month and I will get to it, but I just think maybe because it happened at a time when I was super busy at work, and I just it's a lot. I mean, it's what, 8 seasons, 7 seasons, I don't know where it's at, but it's a lot to commit to, there's a lot. I feel like you have to focus on, and I feel like once I start, it's like one of the like a loose thread on a sweater, right? Like once you start unraveling it, then I'm just all in. I'm just gonna be like,
Right. If I didn't watch it by this time, I just would never watch it. I mean, there's going to be something new.
Looks like a fantastic show. I'm sure I would love it too, but it's just such a commitment. I don't know.
Yeah. See, there are a few among us. Yes, but that's. Yeah.
And I know throughout your career, I know you've also produced a lot of different things. You work for various networks, things like that. I went on your website and I saw some of the other work you've done too. How do you think all of that has sort of made you a better director?
It's kind of interesting. So when I first started off in this business in New York, it was at a time when it was long before, Me Too and Free the Bid and this kind of call for more inclusivity. Women, I feel like at the time when I was starting out, they kind of had a couple different trajectories, and it was fairly limited. It was either go glam squad route, which is awesome, but that's like styling, hair and makeup, or it's production. So the trajectory for me was like coordinator, production manager, producer. So my background is really actually in producing and being that logistics person.
Yeah.
And directing kind of was something that I always felt an attraction towards and I wanted to do. But even at that time, like renting equipment to kind of build your reel and to get your foot in the door, it was very expensive. And now, people are shooting like full features on their iPhone. So it's amazing to have that sort of accessibility. And I felt like I didn't really have those things. So I went the production route, and so I did that for a while. And then I wound up at a couple of networks. And then I think when you work in a network environment, which is really a corporate environment, you kind of learn a lot of diplomacy skills. You learn how to kind of get the best out of a situation. Sometimes what I found very interesting, and I love the challenge of sometimes being painted into a corner where you have no funds, but you have to accomplish something. And I love trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together to make it amazing. And there's always a way to do that. So sometimes I really liked kind of being boxed in to figure out how to bust out of that box, right. And to me, that was really kind of a fun challenge, and it still is.
I would say that's probably what makes some directors really great is like, I guess, problem solving, right? I mean, that's really what it kind of comes down to.
Yeah. As a hobby, it's funny. I've been asked a few times what I love about directing or why I like doing it. And, I also, it's funny because I hadn't really thought about this too much, but I also like to snowboard as well. And so the parallel is if you're doing either halfway decent, you can't think about anything else really. You're forced into just being in the moment. Like snowboarding, obviously you have to kind of pay attention to the task at hand, because if you don't, it could not end very well for you. When it comes to filmmaking and directing, I feel like, you can't really, if you're you just kind of have to pivot constantly because it never goes according to plan. I could tell you all about our fateful Hulu Geico shoot, where there's so many things happening behind the scenes and so many things that weren't quite going according to plan. Like we had this gag, for instance, for the shirt ripping for the werewolf kind of arm to come through. And our lovely wardrobe stylist was using fishing wire and she sliced her finger open.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. You can't plan for it. She obviously didn't plan for it. And you know, fortunately we had medics on set and everything, and she's amazing trooper, and I've worked with her so much in the past, but you know, you just can't plan for that. So you just have to scrap that and go like, okay, right, we have a limited amount of time. I have to kind of sell this story through. So now what can I do? And I love the fact that I can't think about tomorrow. I can't think about how tired I am. I can't think about what I'm, you know, going to buy for groceries or anything. You just are forced into just being in the zone and in the moment. And I just like being so present. That's really part of the fun.
Yeah.
And so what was the solution? You're like, cut it.
Yep. I just lost it altogether. And I think if you remember, I had you just do this crazy shot where I just had you shake your head really fast in front of the camera. And that was kind of the kind of like transformation, kinetic, kind of frenetic kind of movement that kind of sold that through a bit. And so we hadn't planned. So I was calling audibles like all night long. I was like, right, shit, that doesn't work. Okay. Just instead. Yeah.
Go ahead.
In our final 5-10 minutes, I know I would be remiss if we didn't mention the Bachelorette. I know you direct their promos, heavy secrecy. I don't watch the show, but I've seen the clips. The main woman.
You're the only one who doesn't watch, so
I know. She pulled an audible mid-season, just chose a guy, and they were off.
Yep. They were off. Yeah.
How is directing? That's one of the hottest reality shows. How is it directing their promos?
It's an interesting experience for sure, because they're such a well-oiled machine. Everyone on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, they just know what they're doing. They've been doing it for so long. So it's like the same handler all the time that shows up on set. So I'm very familiar with them at this point. They're so good at secrecy. I also directed a few spots for The Bachelor too. So the last Bachelor was the guy, Peter. And so like, we did that. It was like the spoof on Ghost. It was sort of him at the pottery wheel.
Yeah, I saw that.
If you saw it. And it's so funny because I took it, like, we were like in between takes. I'm like, no, but seriously, like, come on, you could tell me. He's like, no, but I really can't. I'm like, no, but come on, like, I'm not gonna tell you. And I mean, they're so good. They are so locked down, you know. No, but that whole team, they're super pro. They're fun to work with. I love. There's a lot of enthusiasm. So the last spot I did for them was right after the Hulu shoot was with Tayshia. She's the replacement for Claire. And she was so bubbly and sweet and just so like, I'm the Bachelorette. She was just so stoked to be there. And in that case, for those projects, like really, my job is just to make them look and feel as good as they possibly can, because we're just really selling through like beautiful beauty shots, and that's the sort of Bachelor and Bachelorette aesthetic. So yeah, it's fun.
I feel
and
you go, Johnny.
That's okay. Please, Krista, go ahead. Krista, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, and prior to that, again, I was not an ardent watcher of The Bachelorette, or The Bachelor, and I got sucked into their worlds, and now I watch.
Who you rooting for? What guy you like?
Still too soon to tell.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Who do you like?
Hey, that's a good question, Austin.
I don't watch.
What?
Well, I kind of like
watch either.
I just saw viral clips of Claire, in my opinion, acting a little clingy sometimes. I don't know. Maybe I didn't get the full thing, but I liked her as the Bachelorette because she pulled audibles and it's kind of crazy.
Oh yeah. She like just completely rewrote the playbook for herself. So yeah.
And I respect it.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was going to ask you, Chris, I saw that you also directed a PSA with Michelle Obama and Jill Biden. What was it like working on set with them, you know, I'm just kind of curious about how that whole experience was. Because I mean, it seems like it'd be kind of like almost like seeing a celebrity, but almost somebody like more you respect or admire. I don't know. It just,
Yes.
it was
Yeah.
very.
I had the pleasure. So I worked at A&E Networks and specifically History Channel for years. So in a way, kind of directing full time is a little bit more of my second career. But when I was at History, so I had the opportunity to shoot them both twice. So I did a couple different PSAs for them, and so I had to go to the White House, and you know, even that in itself is
That's cool.
Sort of impressive. And I like to think I'm pretty okay with generally anyone or any circumstances thrown my way, and I don't really get super starstruck, you know, but I was so nervous and sweating and freaking out. I'm like, oh my God. So there's a whole process when you shoot in the White House. There's a whole
what is that like? Yeah, break that down for us.
Oh gosh, there's security. It's submitting all of your gear and serial numbers in advance. There's background checks that you have to do on yourself and your entire crew, obviously, and submit all that. The process of getting the equipment in, they have people and you know, dogs out sniffing the equipment. So you have to allow a couple of hours just to go through all the camera gear. And of course, you guys have all been on set. So you know that even like the smallest interview is no less than like potentially 2 like full hand trucks full of gear and lighting and everything. So there's that whole process of going through. Next thing you know, you're in, and you know, just being kind of escorted through. They have people that kind of walk you through, and you have handlers, and of course you kind of feel like you're being watched and listened to at all times. So suddenly I'm the most behaved I've ever been in my entire life. So we have the room like maybe about an hour to set and light and just get yourself prepared. And I'm going through my notes and I have everything kind of set up. And there's literally like maybe a 15-20 minute window to get everything that you need.
Wow.
So you have to,
Whoa.
Oh gosh, their schedules are
Crazy.
Down to the minute planned out.
Wow.
And you don't have a lot of second chances. And both Michelle Obama and Dr. Jill Biden were incredibly, you know, they're professionals. They knew what they were doing. So there wasn't a lot for me to really add to it. But I don't think I've ever sweat more in my entire life. I was so nervous because, again, you know, you're kind of awestruck. You're in their house.
I mean, what kind of directing note would you give to Michelle Obama? Maybe she's not. Do you give her a line reading? Hey, you know what?
We did have teleprompter, which helped.
Okay.
I think
I was about to ask you if it was a prompter or not.
The only note I gave her, I was like, okay, can we just slow it down just a bit? Because there's, you know, sometimes there's a pace and a cadence to when you're talking on teleprompter, and yeah.
The Obama cadence, we're all familiar.
A classic cadence.
Exactly. But yeah, so it was an amazing opportunity, and the fact that I got to do it, you know, twice, and then of course, you know, personally, politically, I'm very excited for Dr. Jill Biden to be in the White House again. I think that's going to be amazing. She's very elegant, very personable, very charming, very smart, and all of those things. So I just really enjoyed the experience both times.
That sounds awesome.
Hell yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I guess I just had one final question.
Me too.
Because well, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think you've done in all your years that really like made you successful? Because I think you are successful. And like, what advice would you give to a young male or female coming up today who wants to do what you do?
Oh my goodness. Maybe part of it is I don't consider myself successful at all.
Hey.
Geico
and Michelle Obama beg to differ.
I do love what I do, but I I still feel like I have a ways to go. There's still many things I want to accomplish and hope that I have the opportunity to. But I don't know. It's interesting now. I feel like if I could do anything differently, I probably would have given myself more credit and would have gone after kind of directing a little bit earlier. I think in my career, I think I maybe potentially made a lot of excuses. It's too hard, it's too easy, and it seems so daunting. But then once you just stop and focus and decide that that's what you want to do and set your course and set your intentions, which sounds maybe a little flighty, but honestly, like once I kind of was like, no, actually I'm going to go for this. And I said it out loud and I told people and I gave myself the director credit, I was like, I'm now a director. That is my title. It started to fall into place. And it's not really magic or anything. It's just, I just think you have to kind of know what you want to do and like really focus on it and just pursue it. And I think that there's a way to kind of really achieve what you want to achieve. I don't know. It's when I was at Sundance Channel years and years ago, something that struck me then was like, I would go to a lot of screenings for these different films that would get in, and not disparagingly, but of course I would go and the screening go like, really? That's really? That's what you got?
We all think that too. So.
Yeah, I'm the person who gets wildly jealous when I see something that's really brilliant. Like I know it's like, to me, it's amazing when I'm going like, oh, that's so good. I wish I did it. But and I realized the distinction between like folks who have films in Sundance or a festival or anything like that is like, they did it. It's just, however they achieved it, they achieved it. They didn't really talk about it or someday I'm going to do this. They did it. And that's the distinction. So sometimes I just feel like you just got to dig in and do it. I work with some incredible people here. There's a couple guys who just bang out scripts like it is like they're breathing air at it. And for me, that's a process that I'm still really intimidated by. And I'm like, so how do you do that? And they're like, just sit down and write. I'm like,
okay. I had no idea.
You're like, oh, thanks.
I gotta go, guys.
Exactly.
That's so actually just to kind of piggyback off of what you mentioned, because we've submitted films to festivals as well. And I know that feeling of like going to a festival, and obviously Sundance is one of the biggest festivals in the world, if not the biggest. And seeing a film that you're like, but this got in, like, what do you think is it that about those films that maybe are, in our eyes, are like, well, it's kind of mediocre, but they still get into a major film festival, which is extremely difficult to get into? Is it sometimes they have more pull? Is it who's in the film? Is it, who curates these things?
It could be a lot of things, and it just depends on what the filters are. For that year, I wasn't too involved in that process of the film selection. I worked at Sundance Channel, so I was more covering the festival itself. But it just depends. Sometimes even casting is very interesting, right? Where you have to look at the role itself and who's going to carry it. But sometimes you have to look at it from like, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? Who are we speaking to? And everything from, what gender do we want? Do we want to have a gender? So it just really depends on the project itself. And I feel like it's the same selection process potentially for these festivals where they're like, okay, we've got slots for, and I, from what I recall, it was a while ago, but there were certain things like, we only have slots for like, say, 10 dramas, and then we want 10 comedies. So they're whittling it down, and something could give it an edge. It could be a cast member or something that will, or maybe it was like the screenwriter, or maybe it's just something that might have tipped the scales in that direction. But yeah, it's always interesting. There's always a method to the madness. You just don't always know what that is.
Right.
Sorry, Johnny, she's not going to tell you the real secret.
She's like, off mic. We'll talk. I just had one sort of final question / two-parter thing. You sort of briefly touched on this, but I am curious. You kind of mentioned that you have a lot more you want to do. I guess, what is your ultimate goal? Do you want to be directing episodics? Do you want to be starting to get more into films? Like, what do you want to do? And then I'll ask you the other part of that question, but there's so much.
I think the goal I initially had was to do features. I think that's I'm so intrigued by the process, and I love storytelling. Right now, I can tell a good story in 30 seconds or less. It would be really amazing to kind of stretch that, obviously, and to really take that on. So I'm very intrigued, and that I think is something that for me would be a big achievement.
That's really cool. The last question I had, which is a little bit different, you did mention that you've kind of gone a different route, and now you've been working more with certain types of production companies, like Canyon Road, I think was one that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Great production company.
Yeah, that seemed like they've been doing some really killer stuff. So for any young upcoming director, do you think that the route now is to get tied in with one or get representation? What do you suggest is the best way for someone that wants to start directing more?
It usually does help to align with people who have connections, who have the ability to kind of bring in the work. So whether that's just a rep or it's a production company itself, because there's a lot of competition out there. There are so many, especially in LA. I could toss a rock out the window right now and I'd hit 52 different directors who are perfectly capable and talented, and I know that. So it does help to align yourself with people who have a great reputation. They're known for their service, and they're really good at what they do. In my case, Canyon Road Films has such an impeccable reputation throughout, like the various networks that we do promos and commercials for, and so they're the ones who kind of put me up for projects, and that's kind of nice too. I mean, I kind of hustle on my own, but it's certainly great to have people in your corner, like really kind of elevating you and supporting you and pushing your work out there as well. So
Awesome.
That's
Krista, we elevate you, we support you. For the folks at home, please tell us how people can follow you or connect with you. Give us some links so people can follow you.
Links. Okay. Well, probably the main thing I have right now is Maiden Creative. So that's a little company I started where I often still creative direct. So I'll write and come up with creative for the different projects, and then I'll direct through that. So that's Maiden Creative. And I just have my website, which is Krista Liney, and that's basically it. Not that exciting otherwise.
That's exactly what we wanted.
Yeah.
Great episode, everybody.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Krista.
That's it. Easy.
Oh, we got a couple more hours. It's no problem.
Hey, I'll keep going. This is great. It's good to see your faces, and I love this. This is really fun.